was killing myself with the food I eat, toxic to my health, till I got the news. There's another path that I could choose, and now
Welcome to the New Health Conversation television show, coming to you live from our Denver, Colorado studios. I'm your host and moderator, Coach Steve Toth, and here with us today, Peter Greenlaw, who is known as one of the world's most prominent health investigative scientists. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Steve.
It's awesome to have you.
Thank you.
Without you, none of this would be going on, right?
Thanks.
And our theme today is being overweight really hopeless, or is there a safe and quick way to lose weight and keep it off? And to help us with this subject, we're going to have some real live people from the real world. Don't look so scared. I don't bite. So we're going to share with you, a lot of questions we've been getting from the shows that we have done so far. And people really want to know, what we're talking about and what we bring into the world. Does it really work? And how does it shows up in the real world? So we're going to satisfy, I think, a lot of those questions today, because we're going to have some real people sharing their stories and their lives. And our guest today is Mike Townsend, and he has lost 167 pounds in 184 days. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you, Steve.
So we're going to be talking with him quite a bit, but first we're going to talk about the big issue with weight loss, and the second half of the show we'll be sharing with a lot of people and with the viewers. Is it really hopeful or hopeless to deal with weight loss?
Hopeful.
And I know, just for me and for him, just seeing him today, it's hopeful.
Well, I'm just so excited to share this with the world. This is kind of like my dream and why I do this work in the first place. And you're going to meet some pretty amazing, courageous heroes. I really feel that they're heroes of their own stories and can be inspiration for many of you out there. But the first thing I want to do is I really want to clear up a lot of the misconceptions and a lot of the things that people are saying about weight loss, because there's so much confusion about it, okay? So first I want to just read a couple of things, statistics that I think are so relevant to how big is this problem, and it's not a pun, okay? The amount of people worldwide who are now considered overweight has surpassed the 1 billion mark. Becoming overweight is the first step towards the newly recognized disease called obesity. Obesity is the leading preventable cause of death worldwide, with increasing prevalence in adults and children, and authorities viewed it as one of the most serious public health problems of the 21st century. How's that to start out? Epidemic. Well, really even more than that, it's a pandemic. So let's first get into just some definitions, just to clarify, okay? So let's sort of start about what's overweight. Overweight refers to an individual weighing 10% or more of what is considered his or her recommended healthy weight, as determined by large-scale population surveys. Now, what's the definition of obesity? Obesity is a medical condition which excess body fat has accumulated to the extent that it may have an adverse effect on health, leading to reduced life expectancy and or increased health problems. Now, many of you maybe have heard of the BMI, body mass index. What does it really mean? It's a mathematical formula using height and weight called body mass index. It's also used to assess underweight, normal weight, overweight individuals. BMI, people are considered obese when their body mass index, a measurement obtained by dividing a person's weight in kilograms by the square of the person's height in meters, exceeds 30. A BMI of 35 to 40 is considered severe obesity, and a BMI of 40 to 44.9 is morbid obesity, and a BMI of 40 to 50 is called super obesity. Now, for a long time, they used this measurement, but I just found new research actually today where they now have determined that the most accurate measurement is your circumference divided into your height. So let's say that you're 6 feet tall, That's 72 inches, meaning that you want to be below 36 inches in waist. If you're above that, now it's a much more accurate measurement, they believe. To give you an idea how dramatic, they're saying that when a person's BMI is approaching 40, it shortens their lives by 11 years. However, when you take the same person and take their circumference into their height, the same measurement, they're estimating it shortens their lives by almost 17 years, a 50% increase. So the scary part is there may be many more people that are obese than we're accounting for with the current thing. And keep in mind that we're talking about here that obviously weight gain leads right to obesity. So you want to be doing everything you can possibly, to limit that. But all of these statistics are just frightening. But here's this is really interesting. This is a study that was done in London. The title of the study is, Being Thin Doesn't Mean You're Not Fat. If it really is what's on the inside that counts, then a lot of thin people might be in trouble. Some doctors now think that the internal fat surrounding vital organs like the heart, liver, or pancreas, invisible to the naked eye, could be as dangerous as the more obvious external fat that bulges underneath the skin. The whole concept of being fat needs to be redefined, said Bell, whose research is funded by Britain's Medical Research Council. Without a clear warning signal, like a rounder middle, doctors worry that thin people may be lulled into falsely assuming that because they're not overweight, they're healthy. Even people with normal body mass index scores, a standard obesity measure that divides your height by the square of your weight by the square of your height, can have surprising levels of fat deposits inside. Relating the news to what Bell calls TOFIs, people who are thin outside and fat inside, is really uneventful. The thinner people are, the bigger the surprise, he said, adding that researchers even found TOFIs among people who are professional models.
Wow.
So being overweight is a lot more than your pants don't fit, et cetera. So ladies and gentlemen, I mean, this is something that I think we all have to become aware of, that this misconception that, well, I'm a little bit overweight. Really? Well, based on this evidence, you can actually be thin and you could actually be obese inside. So obesity, which they've now made a disease, starts obviously with the first couple pounds, 5 pounds, 10 pounds, 15 pounds, and then you never take it off. So obviously, if you can come up with a strategy that's going to help you to certainly not get to the level where now you're going to need, full-blown medical attention, you're certainly going to be way, way better off, in the long run. So, Steve, I find it amazing that even today I find new evidence. I mean, it's just amazing that the spotlight is now becoming so intense, where just this week the American Medical Association did declare obesity, and I'm glad they did, a disease. So maybe we're going to take this a heck of a lot more seriously than our clothes just not fitting.
Right on. And so what I wanted to also add to what you said is that you know how much I'm into being awake and being conscious.
Yes.
And what makes this even a more complex conversation is that the market has become very, very confusing because there's a whole so-called weight management industry that has sprung out of this.
Yes.
That, let's face it, we're Americans.
Yes.
And in America, it's all about making money, right?
Right.
And so there's a lot of businesses that got into this business to put out different products, different services to deal with this problem of being overweight. And so most people that really care about themselves and want to do something about their issue will go through a number of products, a number of services, and try them to see if it will help them. But even my own personal experience has told me that I've tried a lot of different things, but those things are fads,
right?
At least for me, in my experience, that yes, I can lose weight doing that, signing up for one of these programs, but guess what? I can lose 20 pounds, and the next thing I know, 6 months or a year later, I'm not 20 pounds overweight, but I'm 40 pounds overweight.
Right.
I put it all back.
Right. Well, let me address that if I might, okay? First of all, ladies and gentlemen, I think there's a big misconception of how do we become overweight and how to become obese in the first place. And if the general consensus of the recommendations that are being made today are diet and exercise. Well, guess what? Based on the fact that right now 70% of America is overweight, and they're projecting in 7 years by 2020, 80% of America is going to be overweight. It's not because we don't have enough gyms. It's not because we're not becoming aware. It's because the world has changed in such a way. And let me give you just a couple fundamental things. I had an epiphany back in March of this year where I realized that the things that I've been lecturing on for the last 10 years were coming together and combining in what I defined as a syndrome called to-dose syndrome, which is toxicity, deficiency, being overweight, and stressed out. But what's driving this weight gain might be surprising to you, that toxicity and deficiency actually are causing us to gain weight. You're saying, well, how is that possible? Well, it's possible because, number one, toxins, as they enter the body, because the body has no way to get rid of them because we don't have enough nutrients, it takes the toxin, it stuffs them in fat cells, and we begin to accumulate weight. Because no amount of exercise and no amount of any kind of diet up to this point had ever really dealt with that. And again, Steve, as I said, unless you understand the problem, how can you come up with a solution? We keep dieting, but we're ignoring the main fact that our food is so nutritionally bankrupt that when you go on a diet, you cause stress in the body. And when stress goes up for a long period of time, you create a hormone called cortisol, which is supposed to be there. But guess what it does? When it's chronic, it causes you to store fat, burn muscle, reduces your bone mass, and actually shrinks your brain. But other than that, it's great stuff that I want to know where I can get some more of, right?
Yeah, and Peter, this drives me absolutely nuts. The fact that we don't learn, it's like we don't learn from our own mistakes, and this is true for me. It's like we keep doing this stuff that isn't really getting the permanent results that we're looking for, but we keep hoping, and they keep selling us.
Smoking hope dope.
They keep selling us the hope that, hey, guess what? Well, there's this new thing. Well, try this, but it's no different than the last thing I tried. So it has become a $450 billion industry,
and it fails 98%
and we keep
of the
doing,
time.
And we keep doing it.
It fails 98% of the time, according to the National Institute of Health. Those aren't my numbers. But what's so amazing is that we keep applying the same solution to the wrong problem. It's not about calories. See, people are all hung up on calories.
What did Einstein say?
He said, definition of insanity, you keep doing the same thing over and over again, and we keep getting fatter and fatter and fatter every year, and yet people think, okay, well, this is the solution. Well, to me, that's the wrong solution, because a calorie is not a physical thing. It's simply the amount of heat it takes to raise a gram of water 1 degree Celsius. That's it. It's not a physical thing. And when we eat food, what we need to be concerned about are the nutrients that can be absorbed in the cells. And when you're lacking those nutrients, number one, the body goes into stress. Now you store fat. But more importantly, because of the lack of nutrients, the body doesn't have the fuel it needs to get rid of the toxins, which it could do if food had nutritional value. You remember in our last show, we had Dr.
Because it was designed that way. The body was designed in a way that it knows what to do as long as we put the stuff in our mouth that it needs.
See, you've learned. You don't even need me on the show anymore. You've learned all this stuff, right?
Well, you taught me in 2 months.
Right.
I get it.
And you remember when we did the show with Dr. Ina, the clinical nutritionist, about deficiency, and we talked about an apple in 1976. Today, you have to eat between 6 and 12 apples to equal the nutrition of 1 apple from 1976. And a UCLA study said they took a bowl of spinach in 1957, Popeye's food. Today, to equal the nutrients, you've got to eat 50 bowls of spinach. No wonder we're overweight. No wonder it's out of control. Because we're eating and eating, we're getting these empty calories that never fill us up, and then we're starving to death. As a matter of fact, in one of these studies in here, they talked about the fact that you would think that obese people, because they eat so much, they'd be satisfied. The reverse is actually true. The more they eat, the hungrier they get. And I'm sure some of your guests can probably some of our guests can fill us on that later about what that experience is like. But it's counterintuitive. And the other thing that's amazing, they just did a study on obese children. And they found that those children were suffering from scurvy and rickets, which are diseases of malnutrition. They're obese. Do you think it was because they weren't eating enough calories? This is where it's insane. And then to make matters worse, in the new book, Salt, Sugar, and Fat by Michael Moss, he went 4 years behind the scenes in the food companies and discovered they've created something called the bliss point. What's the bliss point? Well, when we eat food, sugar, salt, and fat, they can do a brain scan, and they call it lighting up the brain. And when it gets to the point where you've the right combination of sugar and those fats. The brain gets really excited, but they want to make sure we never cross over the barrier where we're satisfied. Why? Nobody can eat just one. Really? They admitted that they've done this. It's been $1 billion to figure this out. And children, their cereals, they figured out a way to get them to eat more because their cereal contains 80% more sugar, 60% less fiber, and 40% more salt. And you know what the model they used to determine this stimulation in the brain? What they used as the model? Cocaine.
Wow.
When they took coke addicts and they measured they could see that basically sugar does exactly the same thing as cocaine.
So it's based on addictive behavior, basically.
Addictive behavior.
So there's no accident that we hear, would you like to biggie size that?
Right.
Of course.
Right.
Because I already know. I mean, I remember when I used to go, go to McDonald's.
Yeah.
You know, I eat a Big Mac, and before I even finished it, I says, well, I got to have another one because this ain't doing it.
It's working.
I'm still hungry.
And it's free enterprise and great. You know, more power to them. It's just that
I don't have a problem with that.
No.
That it's free enterprise and but the problem that I have
is awareness.
Is that wait a minute, what we eating? Basically, we're not even. Well, yeah, we eating, but it's an illusion.
Right.
It's an illusion that we're putting things into our body that's actually serving us.
Well,
it's an illusion.
You know, we're in Colorado, and I know we have this big meat producers here, and I certainly like hamburgers and stuff like that. But I think this would be, again about awareness. Okay. Many of our commercial dairy and food products come from animals that consumed livestock feed. Good so far, right? Mm. Made from the remains of tens of millions of dogs and cats that were killed with euthanasia drugs at animal shelters and veterinary clinics. So along with your hamburger, you get Rin Tin Tin or Fluffy the cat. Your choice.
And there's no way for us to tell that.
They don't tell us. Mm. Are you kidding me? Mm. So awareness becomes huge. By the way, this book, The 100-Year Lie, that's just one of the things in there that's frightening. And see, we don't know. And we pretend that not caring, somehow that's going to
fix it.
It's going to fix it, right. Oh, how many people, they roll them in the emergency room with a massive heart attack. Now they're going to go to a diet, right?
Or here's a better one. I'm just one person.
Yes.
And I really can't change the world.
No.
So I'm really a victim of what's happening. Mm-hmm. And... what am I going to do? Make big noise? It's not going to matter because I'm just one person.
Well, we're talking to the world right now. Mm-hmm. This is why I believe that this message and this cause and this mission is so important. Because I had no idea about this. Now, I become a nerdy researcher, like they call me, and I've read 500 books, and I read stuff like that, and I go, no, that can't be possible. Wouldn't the government prevent that? No, they're endorsing it. Are you kidding me? Preventing it, they're endorsing it. And then we look around America, and you got 1 billion people worldwide now overweight. For the first time in history, more people in China are overweight than underweight. And for the first time in the history of the world, this year, according to the Lancet, a big study out of England, 10 years, more children will die this year of obesity than starvation.
Wow.
And I just seen a documentary recently, Peter, that said the big golden arches are looking to build 30,000 stores in China. So that's great for the corporation, but guess what it's going to do to people?
And I tell them all the time, this progress is not perfection. It's not that you could never have fast food again, but when you really begin to learn and your body starts to accept what's available, if you know where to find it, because you're not going to find it at your grocery store. Because we know in 41 major studies that organic nutritionally is no different than regular food. So what are you going to do? Right? And the point is that we're gaining weight because of the fact that we're consuming all of these empty calories that are forcing us to eat more, that are stressing out our bodies, that are causing us to store fat, and the very nutrients that used to be there, something called trace minerals, which are actually part of the periodic table. And it's what plants need in nature to provide maximum health. But because we've used herbicides and pesticides since the early 30s, those are destroyed in the soil. No matter what you eat, grow it in your back garden, it won't have these trace minerals. And I'm not talking about calcium and magnesium. I'm talking about things like arsenic. I'm talking about things like molybdenum and boron. But they're trace. That's what they call trace. Tiny, tiny amounts that are part of nature that are no longer available to us. As a matter of fact, one other quote I want to give you to back up my statement, because I never give you my opinions. Nutrition expert Joel D. Wallach breaks the 91 nutrients required essential to human health down this way. 60 minerals, 16 vitamins, 12 amino acids, and 3 essential fatty acids, which together are required daily for optimum health and longevity. Quote, the entire complement of the 91 essential nutrients required historically found in our earthly foods are no longer there. They are either totally absent or their availability is so highly variable that you're better off to go to Las Vegas and place a bet on the crap table.
Wow.
Well,
so where are you going to get it? What are you going to do? You're going to just keep doing what you do? You're going to, and I'm all for organic, and I'm all for these stores that offer this stuff.
well, I had something about organic, by the way,
Okay.
that I wanted to get your, not your opinion, but your
My
research.
research, right?
Is that knowing humanity and knowing humans and what we're capable of, we're capable of anything. Can you put something in the food supply that now you can call it organic?
I honestly, that's a great question. I honestly, I don't know.
Would you mind researching that for
I'll
us,
be happy
maybe?
to.
Yeah.
I know one thing, you have to be it's very tricky because they have different categories of organic. And I always say this to people. I say, okay, you got organic, you're in Chicago, it's 10 below zero in the middle of January. How'd they get the crops from California to Chicago? See, the certification is only at the farm. Whatever the truckers put on in the way, who knows, right? So isn't that a great system, right? Also, they did a study, and organic had up to 20% pesticides. And an interesting thing I didn't know, organic, they use organic herbicides and pesticides. Isn't that great?
There you go.
There you go. So I guess
You
that's
just
your
partially answered the question.
I partially answered the question.
Yeah. Okay, so got it. Interesting.
So
All right.
like you started the show, this is a pandemic. This is an enormous problem. And in the future, we'll do more shows where we'll break this down in greater detail, where we'll do a whole show just to begin to break down diets and why they don't possibly work. One last thing I want to share, and then I think we'll get to our guests, is that for a long time we were taught the RDA, which is the required daily allowance. That's what the government told us that we needed, basically of nutrients and whatever. Well, they've now got a new term called the RDI, which is a recommended daily intake of nutrients. These trace minerals I'm talking about, things like boron and molybdenum and whatever, okay? Mm. And they went out and they went to regular stores and to organic stores, and they calculated how many calories you need to meet the bare minimum. Now, the bare minimum represented what we need to avoid sickness, not optimum health and wellness, okay? Mm. They estimated that today, if we went out of here, we would have to consume, to meet that RDI, 5,500 calories a day.
Oh, my God.
And you wonder why we're sick and tired and worn out and we're blowing up? And why people that are overweight can't stop eating?
That would be several times more than what I do now. And that would mean that I would be like 300 pounds.
Well, how expensive is it? How expensive is it to consume 5,500 calories a day? But see, there's the problem. They're empty. We're not getting the nutrients. You could do 1/10 of that probably and be way better off if you had the nutrients, which is the whole purpose, of the show. Now, I want to do a disclaimer right now that we're going to share some stories that are, we're not saying they're typical. These are heroes. These are amazing stories. In a clinical study utilizing this new nutritional technology that they're going to talk about in their own way, in one clinical study, the average weight loss for women was about 7.2 pounds in 9 days. And for men, it was about 7.5 pounds in 9 days. And to show that this is, real science here, that this isn't just some, made up stuff, they did a big study utilizing this at the University of Chicago. And they determined that in this study where they took people and measured them against what's called the heart healthy diet, they had twice the fat loss, twice the weight loss, and they reduced visceral fat, which is the fat which is around our middle that is the most destructive to human beings. So this isn't hocus pocus. This is based on real science, a double-blind study that's been published in 2 major publications about what these people are going to share with us today. So I want everybody to understand that. But again, these results are not typical. We're not saying this could happen to you. They're their stories, and we want to be very careful about that because we don't want to give people false impressions. I do want to give you hope. I don't want to scare you. I want to make you aware. I don't want to scare you to death, but I want to scare you to life. There is hope, And we know that diets aren't working, can't work, and every strategy so far dealing with this new problem called to dose, that's why we need a different solution, as Einstein would say. So now I'm going to zip it up and turn it back over to you.
Okay. So just from my own experience,
yes.
I'm going to keep this very, very short. So what you just talked about, 2 years ago, if you would have seen me 2 years ago, I was 243 pounds. And my waist, my pants were 42. And today I can fit into a 37.
Cool.
Okay. And so I want to get down to either a 36 or a 35, and this has got to go. Like, I'm so aware. I'm looking at myself in the camera and going like, you still have this. Coach Steve, you still have this. You're not there. So, but I'll get there.
No,
it's fine.
Honestly, I want to congratulate you. When we first met a couple months ago, and I know you were really skeptical, and whatever I said to you motivated you to at least try it. And I think you would be the first to admit.
And I told you I wouldn't do the show. I wouldn't do if I'm not convinced myself that this works, and for that I have to do it myself.
Right.
And I have to come from my own experience.
And you were really skeptical.
I was very skeptical because I heard the stories. I mean, I've done lots of stuff like this before, and it's.
And I supported you, and I said,
"What would this make it different?"
Just let's see what happens. That's all.
Okay.
Because, tell them what you had done, which was pretty remarkable. But then what happened?
Well, I mean, I worked on myself because 2 years ago, I just had an epiphany, and because I started this show called the Living Consciously TV show, and if you think about it, living consciously actually calls you to being conscious. And then I looked at myself, and I'm going like, oh my God, how conscious am I when it comes to my health if I'm at 243 pounds? And, I had to admit to myself, it's like all of this stuff really begins when you can say to yourself, dude, you have a problem. And I did that. I looked at myself in the mirror and I said, I have a problem. And I've been dealing with this problem for a long time, and it's always been around my belly, right, and here.
That's the most deadly.
Yeah, and I said, I'm ready to change. I do whatever. So I hired a nutritionist. I worked with her for 6 months. I have trained myself to get off, the fast food roller coaster and the pop stuff and all. I got rid of all the stuff that I already knew that didn't work, but I didn't have the motivation to actually say no to it. And so I got to the point after 6 months, I said no to fast food. I said no to pop, and I started to say yes to, salads and chicken and fish and good stuff. And after I lost a whole bunch of pounds, then I said, well, my nutritionist said it's time to exercise. And this is what's the irony of it all is that it's the first two things he told me. He says, yes, you can go on a diet, which I did, and yes, you can exercise, and it's not about exercise, it's not about diet. I said, what? If it's not about those things, then what is it about, Peter?
You were skeptical, right? Yeah. Who is this guy?
Please tell me.
Yeah, right.
Please tell me what it's about then. And so then I went on this trip of starting to walk, and I walked around the lake. I live near a lake, and I did that for quite a while. I walked 2 hours every day, and then I got really sick of it, and I said, this is no fun. And so I said, well, what can I do that I would actually enjoy? And it was biking. So I got a bike, I bought a bike, I started biking. And I started to bike. I got to the point where I actually biked 4 or 5 days a week, 2 hours a day. And it got me down to 194 pounds, and that's it. It didn't matter what I did after that. I've increased biking. I played tennis. I did all kinds of different things. I didn't know what else to do with my food because I already said no to everything else that I used to love.
Welcome to dose.
And I ate the right stuff. I did the exercise, and hey, I don't know how to get rid of the rest of it. And then he came along and he said, well, I'll show you how.
Were you hungry most of the time before this?
Oh yeah,
when you're biking and stuff.
Not only was I hungry, I took naps in the afternoon.
Yeah.
I got to the point where after I ate, I had to lay down It's like I couldn't deal with myself.
Right.
At night, I had to get up several times at night to go to the bathroom, and I all of it's, basically I said, well, this must have to do with the fact that I'm 60 years old. Can you believe that I'm 60 years old? No. So I said, it has to do with that, because I know all the other 60-year-olds I know deal with this, with the same stuff, all the symptoms. And then one day, my daughter was at my house, and at that time, she was about to have a baby, and she had to check her blood sugar on a regular basis. And she was sitting next to me, and Mary says, hey, Dad, just for fun, let me check your blood sugar. She stick needles in, guess the reading. Do you know what it was? 400.
Wow. Information.
My
there.
blood sugar was
Wow.
400.
100 is normal.
And I said,
80 to 140.
and then she looks at me, she says, let's do it again. Because maybe there is something wrong with the readings. So we did it again, same thing. She says, nothing wrong. She says, you better go to the emergency room right now.
Yeah,
so I did, and I was 2 months before I met him, I was diagnosed with diabetes 2.
Wow.
And so that really motivated me. I said, I'm going to be open, and this is the key.
It's being open.
As everybody is, watching this show, is that if you're not open, if you already, because what we rely on is this monster right here between our ears, and this monster between our ears has a lot of information that really doesn't serve us.
Well, if you remember, I said, and I've said it on subsequent shows, that what if you didn't know what you think you know? Right. And what if what you did know was completely wrong? And that's kind of where you were. It wasn't even that you were really doing anything wrong. It was that the solution you were using was for the wrong problem. So now what's
And I closed myself off to anything because I just said, I heard all this, and nothing works, so guess what? There is nothing out there that's going to help me from where I'm at. And then you came along, and I said, okay, but consciousness is telling me part of consciousness and my growth has to do with I have to be open.
Correct.
I must be open to new things and new ideas. Otherwise, there's no growth.
Right.
And here we are today. So we gotta get with Mike, because it's important that we spend a little time. So Mike, please share with us and the viewers, what was your life like when you were, what were you? You lost 167 pounds.
367 pounds when I started the program. I was up to 400 at one time.
Give us something about a typical day.
Typical day for Mike would be get up, eat a triple egg omelet with all the hash browns and everything. Then I'd take a nap. Then I would just sit up and watch TV, and then I would eat my lunch, which would be 2-foot-long Subway sandwiches or something like that, and then take another nap. And this is what was going on for the last 3 or 4 years.
What about dinner?
That would be a 10-piece chicken from Kentucky Fried. I was slave to the drive-through window. Slave to it, and slave to the delivery guys too. They all know me. They probably figured I died or moved by now. I haven't called them in so long,
They knew you by first
oh
name.
man, I'm telling you.
Mike is calling. Yeah. Would you like the usual?
Yeah, exactly. Double cheese, double sausage. Always, every time, and the Chinese place knew to bring me the pork fried rice and everything, and man, it's just amazing that I went from that to eating a small piece of chicken and actually fulfilled what I needed inside, And
not to interrupt, but were you experiencing, even though, despite all that you were eating, you were still hungry?
Oh, always. I mean, every commercial I'd get up and hit the chips. I'd have to leave them in the other room, otherwise, I'd eat them all before they were,
And isn't that interesting too? That how many hours of television were you watching?
All day long. It's Law and Order, Special Victims Unit.
So
I like that program.
It's CIS.
Do we wonder why do we have in every 8 minutes on commercial television we have commercials about selling us food? Usually, what kind of food? Fast food.
Fast food.
And then they sell us the pills to fix it.
And you notice the food never looks as good when you get it at the window either.
Yeah.
As it does on a TV commercial. But I don't care. I just wanted to eat it. And I tell you, it just, I don't understand what happened to me after I started.
So emotionally, how were you? Like,
I didn't like people to come over and see me. I didn't want my picture taken. The only way I could get up would be to lean on the table, and actually, I had to put a big 2x4 table in there in front of me to get up on because I broke the other one.
And what kind of relationships were you in at the time? Like, did you have Were you married? Did you
No. I've always been single. See, I've been overweight since I've been like a sophomore in high school. I've been over 240 pounds or something like that.
Wow.
And right now I'm weighing at 204. And feeling better than I ever have.
Oh, yeah,
you
I can tell.
I don't crave the food. It's.
What happened to all the skin that you had?
I imagine it went away with the other stuff. I gotta admit, I lost it fast. There is a little bit here. I still got a little bit of a roll, but I mean,
let's show everybody your pants.
Okay. These are what I was wearing when I started this program. Size 54. I can actually fit in one leg now.
He fits in one leg.
Yeah, I can get in one leg for sure.
You've gone from 54 to what are you?
34. I wear a size 34 jeans.
167 pounds. That's another person.
In
you
6
lost
months.
Another person.
Yeah, it's
in 6 months. Now, again, his results aren't typical. I told you about the clinical study, but this really did happen to him. This isn't some myth. This is the guy sitting here that I know, and I saw him shrink. But the other thing I saw was that he came out of his shell. This was like, this is what life is really about?
I couldn't talk. I mean, I was always out of breath. Three words, I was breathing hard. I wouldn't talk to anybody.
Mike, I remember the first time I had you at one of my lectures. And you were so nervous.
God.
You had to call your coach like 10 times.
Yeah.
I mean, to get him to get up just to talk for like a minute in front of people. And to have you sitting here on this TV set today, congratulations, you're doing awesome. I mean, it's like a whole new life.
Actually, his coach is right here.
Yes.
So let's get her up.
My coach, Marge, thank God for her. Marge, come tell him.
It's time to come up to the mic.
This is a lady that totally blew my mind and helped me along a hole, a dark hole.
Yeah. So you needed a coach because if you could have done it without a coach, you would have done it already. Right. So again, everybody that's watching, the lesson to take home with this is that don't try this alone because I wouldn't have succeeded by myself. Without you, I wouldn't have succeeded, and the coach that you put me in touch with, I wouldn't have succeeded because I wouldn't have known what to do.
Right, and I want to stress, the more you communicate with your coach, the better results you're going to get. If you think you know how to do this, you don't. We can get you through all your little. Anytime you're feeling discomfort, just call us. We can tell you.
Also, before even March, you're now coaching people.
Oh yeah. Oh,
and how satisfying is that for you?
Oh man, my best friend lost 100 pounds. I've got all kinds of people losing weight left and right. And they're coming to me asking me what I'm doing.
So let's get back to Marge.
Okay.
So Marge, tell us about when you first contacted him and how did you support him to get to where he is. By the way, these are incredible results. I mean, when I saw him in real life, I mean, all I saw is his picture. And when I saw him in real life, I said, oh my God, this is a different person.
Well, before that, Steve, can I interrupt for 1 second?
Sure. You can always interrupt.
Good. My show. Okay. Marge, but I think what's so incredible, and you really are an inspiration for me. You're really one of the reasons that I think that I do what I do every single day with joy, without all the airplanes I get on, all the trips that I make. But I think before you even share what you did for Mike, what you did for yourself, and you had a coach. So just share with everyone your story because it's remarkable.
Thank you. It was 2.5 years now that I've been on it, Steve. And before that, I didn't have a life. I had such bad health issues that I thought my life was over.
Mm-hmm. Give us some examples real quick. What were some of those health issues? Can she?
Well, you can't name the conditions, but you can. I mean, in general, what you had, you couldn't sleep. I mean, what were you experiencing? I'm saying, what was the result of your health issues? It was keeping you from having the life that you thought you probably thought you were never going to have again, right?
I had no energy.
Right.
I mean, I knew my organs were probably shutting down because I was so dehydrated because of some of the issues that I had.
Plus, you couldn't keep things down.
Yeah. I mean, and no one could help me, and they said that. And it was because of Peter. I was at a meeting of his, and he was sharing the message about it. And since I've been on this new nutritional technology, it has given me my life back, literally. I mean, I have more energy now than I did when I was 30 and 40 years of age.
Yeah, and that's really what's important to me, too. It's the energy. I don't really, I mean, I care about the weight, but that's not my primary purpose.
It really isn't. I mean, it's just totally amazing, isn't it?
Now, despite the fact your results weren't typical, How much weight did you lose in what period of time?
Okay, and probably about 2 months, I lost 25 pounds and 37 inches.
And you weren't really overweight?
No, I wasn't.
Or didn't think you were for sure,
No.
right?
No. And the whole thing was, the old wives tell, you know, if you're a woman, if you're over 65 and you have just a few pounds to lose, that's the hardest. That's what I've always heard. That's what we always hear. It was just the opposite. And I guess you could say I kind of took it as a challenge to prove this. And the more I did, the more the results I received. Because of that, I'm like Peter, I just feel compelled to share the message with other people. Because like Mike says, you can't do it alone, and you know the results that you're going to get, and so they're not going to be alone. That's why we're getting the results that we are. I had coached over 60 people last year alone, and 3 of them lost over 100 pounds.
Was Teresa?
Yeah.
Was Teresa one of the people you coached?
Yes.
Okay, so let's bring her up for just a minute, because time is running by here fast. Conscious television.
Time flies when we're having fun, right?
Yeah.
Hi,
Telling
Teresa.
the truth.
Hi.
So tell us what was going on with you when you first started this new nutritional technology. How much did you weigh?
I weighed 339.
Wow.
I've lost 136 pounds and 121 inches.
Man.
Wow.
So
That's phenomenal. And now, again, your results aren't typical, but how long did it take you? Well, before that, had you had any success at all at weight loss before this?
I have had very little. It took me probably 4 different programs to lose 100 pounds. And then
Could you keep it off?
No, I did not. I was gaining it back. I was losing my self-worth. And it's like, I can't do this. And then I heard Peter's.
Well, let me just get back to we spent very little time on what was your life like. Please share with us when you were over 300 pounds. What was a day like?
My day was I would come home from work. I would go straight to the couch, turn the TV on.
Yeah, but what did you do when you got up?
When I got up,
the day for you started when you came back from work to home, right? No, it starts
right.
when you got up.
I would fix my
do?
breakfast.
What do you eat?
It was anywhere from yogurt and granola to a bagel, cream cheese. It wasn't overly a large breakfast, but then I would snack all through the day and have a big lunch and a big dinner.
And how did you feel?
I felt horrible.
All day?
All day. Yeah, I had no energy. I was tired all the time. I would take naps.
Right.
I was just living. I wasn't living life. I was just existing.
And then you started to put nutrition and minerals into your system, that what we were designed to do.
Yes.
And then what happened?
Everything changed. I got energy. I'm living life to the fullest.
Got a bunch of new friends.
I have a bunch of new friends. Yes, I do.
Are you married?
Yes.
Great. How did your relationship change?
Drastically.
Really?
Yeah. For the better,
is
of course. For the
It's better,
better.
of course.
I mean, if it's too personal, don't answer the question. Is your husband also overweight?
No.
No?
No.
And how did he react to when you ended up to be half the person you were?
Well, he hasn't really said a whole lot. He's not a
Well, what
very
did you
vocal
notice?
person. I'm sorry?
What did you notice in your relationship with him? Was he? Is he different towards you than he was before? How so?
Yes.
How so?
More affectionate. We do more things together because I'm physically able to now.
Yeah.
So we go out and we do a lot more things together.
Wow.
Spend more time
So you got your
together.
life back, is what you're saying?
Yes.
Yeah, and he got his
got me back.
wife back.
Wow.
Yes.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Amazing story. Thank you, Teresa.
Thanks, Teresa.
Thank you.
And then I think we got one more person, Dave, right?
Yes.
That's somebody that you just started with.
Yeah,
Say
Dave.
something about that.
Dave is the guy that called us up, and he started out at about 460 pounds and got on the program and just stayed strictly doing what he's supposed to be doing. He's lost 60 pounds now. I loaned him about 60 days.
Wow. 66.
66. Sorry.
Just to be clear, Steve.
Obviously, he's seriously counting.
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah, you do. When you're as heavy as me and Dave were, you do count. Every pound counts.
And it's not only that; it's the inches that I've taken off. The weight is great, but when clothes that you haven't worn for years start fitting again, and it's not a struggle to put them on, and it's not a struggle to walk or to get on a bicycle or
we got them on
something
the
like that. It's just it's like being born again almost.
Wow. So you were about the same size
I
as he is
was
today,
almost
right?
exactly the same size as him.
So how much does it help that you can actually relate to him and with him?
Coaching him.
I tell you, I get on my bicycle. I ride it a couple hours a day like you do, and or did or whatever. And
I still do.
I think about Dave a lot. I actually cry. I cried a few times over just knowing what this is done to me. I'm out on a bicycle for one, and actually going up the hill, not just down them.
Right.
And Dave's experience when he told me about the steering wheel, that he can get behind his Dodge truck steering wheel without his belly rubbing out. I remember that happening to me. And now I sit in my car. There's this much room. I saw Dave. Dave's got at least 6 inches.
First I could get one hand in there, and now I can get both hands in there, and it's like...
Dave, honestly, you're an inspiration, and this is going out to people all over the world. So I think 2 questions I want to ask you. Number one, obviously, you must have tried things in the past that didn't work.
I tried everything feasible.
Why is this new nutritional technology? What do you think's different? What's different about it?
I think the fact that I'm not hungry, which amazes me. If you'd have told me that that I could go without being hungry, doing what I'm doing, I would have told you were just absolutely nuts.
Yeah, what are you smoking?
And the energy that it gives me, it actually, I want to go do stuff. I'm working on my boat again. It sat for about 5 years and collected cobwebs, and I'm looking forward to getting back out on it again.
So you feel like you're getting your life back?
Yes, absolutely. And I was at the end. I mean, I was in bad shape.
Yeah, we were.
Did you see a doctor and?
Yeah, the doctors. They give you diuretics, which dehydrate you. You can lose 20 pounds real quick of water weight. Or any other diet that I tried, I'd lose 20, 30 pounds, and it would stop, and it would go no further, and no matter what I did.
Did they say that this is really it's really hard on your heart?
Well, yeah. I could tell, and I can tell, inside me now that I feel healthier, I just feel it.
Well, and do you agree with what I was saying earlier, that you've never experienced nutrients at this level, so you're not having the cravings? I mean,
right.
I can't imagine.
Think I ever fed
were you like my buddy over here, Mike? I mean, how much were you consuming on a daily basis?
I wasn't as bad on the fast food. I would never eat breakfast, and then I would eat lunch and then probably dinner, but I would eat at night, ice cream and fattening type things at night, and just sitting there watching TV and consuming all this stuff, and the weight just finally I went to the doctor's office and the scale wouldn't weigh me. Wow. And that was about a month, and I had this number in my pocket for a couple of months, carrying it around, thinking it was another fad. And finally I said, I'm going to call it, I don't care. And
best call you ever made.
Wow, what an inspiration! Well, you're just a hero.
Yeah,
Thank you so much for sharing. And
Thank
keep
you.
going, because you can be an inspiration. Say, for all the people that are watching this all over the world right now, if you were to tell them one thing, maybe they only have 10 pounds to lose, whatever, because it always starts with the first pound. What would you say to inspire them based on what's happened to you?
I'd say, give it a try. Take one last leap of faith and try it.
Well,
It's a
you
miracle.
see, the enemy really is that people get resigned and cynical.
Yes.
That's the enemy.
And they give up.
Right.
And it's all about results.
And, the coaching is marvelous. It's great to have somebody you can talk to.
Great.
Sure is.
Well, you're an
Get support.
inspiration. You're such an inspiration.
Thank you, Dave.
Dave, thanks so much for coming. Honestly, Steve,
All right, so-
this is why I do this. Are you kidding me? You think there could be anything more motivational than that?
No.
And and I've shared with you before the story about my own mom, who was morbidly obese my whole life. I never knew her thin, and I never knew her healthy. And I don't think I ever shared this with you before. She died 15 years ago of a massive heart attack and stroke. And 6 months before she died, she said to me, I'll never forget it, still rings in my ear. She said, Peter, if there's one thing in my life I want before I die, it would be to die thin.
Oh.
Wow.
I've never forgotten that. And it's what inspires me to do this work, to bring this message. And then what's so gratifying for me, to inspire someone like Mike to coach Dave, and then to get Dave in a position where he gets such a result that he can then share this with other people. I mean, that's what it's about. You and I, we're two people. We're bringing this message. We can't do this alone. We need ambassadors. We need other people that will, number one, do it for themselves, and then maybe share it with other people so that we can. That's the only way we're going to change the world. We've got to turn this around. This is not headed in the right direction.
Right, no question. Have you found anybody so far that you came in contact with that it hasn't worked for?
Yes. I would say it's, honestly, in my experience, it's probably been more than 99% effective. And I wonder the people that it didn't work were they just so resigned. And so, because I tell people all the time, it really is. If you got 10 pounds to lose and your BMI, it doesn't matter. 10 pounds, 100 pounds, doesn't matter. You got to start somewhere, because there are tons of people that are only 10 pounds overweight that have given up. Say, well, just because I'm older, I'm never going to lose it. So nothing is 100%. That would be complete nuts to say that. But I often wonder, is it because they simply didn't think that they could do it and they gave up?
Right, or they cheat.
Or they cheat.
Right.
Or maybe they didn't have a coach. That's why the coaches become so important.
Didn't want it bad enough.
Right. So I really want to acknowledge everybody that showed up today, because
It takes real courage.
It's a big deal.
It's a big deal.
It takes huge courage, and to be in the public's eye.
Yes.
But really, I think what we want the viewers to really, again, take home from this is that there is hope.
Yes.
And we brought people in.
Yes.
That you and I are just not talking about this, okay? Right. Because it's science, right?
Right. It is science.
So now we brought the proof that it is possible when people are committed, and when committed to themselves.
Correct.
Right? So the bottom line here really is, we want to remind everybody that it's about personal responsibility. The government isn't going to do it for us. The doctors aren't going to do it for us. I mean, it's obvious, right?
Obvious.
So we all have to be responsible. I have to be responsible for my health, and that's what I've done. 2 months ago when I met you, is that
And to
this
give
is up
up,
to me.
what if you didn't know what you think you know? And just because it wasn't invented doesn't mean it wasn't possible. Or would you have that iPhone? 10 years ago, if I said, I'll give you $500, you can tell me what that is and show me how to turn it on. Would you have known?
I wouldn't have. If you would have described this to me,
Yes.
10 years ago, I would have said, that's probably out of, you saw that
The Jetsons.
in a science fiction movie.
Exactly.
And it doesn't exist, and it
Right.
won't exist.
Or one of my favorite quotes from a science fiction writer, Arthur C. Clarke, and he said, any technology that is sufficiently advanced is indistinguishable from magic. That's what we're dealing with here. Now, we're saying these results aren't typical, but who wouldn't be satisfied with 7 or 8 pounds in 9 or 10 days? Come on. Who's not going to be happy with that?
And the important part is that the ability to keep it off. I mean, that's the key.
Keep it off, and to be motivated to continue to get to your goal, wherever that might be for you. Because the food's not going to become more nutritious. The air's not going to become less polluted. The water, it's just we have the ability to really make a difference with some pretty simple choices. It's not hard, right?
No, it's not hard.
I think Dave shared that with us. It's not hard. He's successful. Why? He can't believe he's not hungry because every diet he was based on deprivation. Of course he was going to be hungry.
Yep.
And when you rely on willpower, I'm pretty strong, but eventually I'm going to have to set that glass down. And that's what happens with willpower, especially when your cells are going, feed me, not another piece of pizza, not your 10-bucket Kentucky Fried Chicken, but nutrients. It's that simple. It's not that complicated. You just have to be able to find them in the right quantities and the right, things like that. And in future shows, we're going to give people...
And we'll be talking about specific things that people need
exactly.
to have. Yeah.
We're just giving them the 50,000-foot view just to introduce this whole concept. And I certainly would love to have these people back maybe in a month or two, especially Dave, and let's see how they're doing. I think that'd be great,
yeah,
right?
Fantastic. Yeah. We're looking forward to that, certainly.
Definitely.
So I want to thank all of our guests, specifically Mike.
Thank
you for being here, and everybody else that showed up. Teresa, Dave, and who else? Marge. Thank you very much for being here, and all the other viewers that were here in the seats, and everybody out there that are watching, that are going to be watching the show. Thank you very much for tuning in. I think this is a very, very. I can't find right now a more important subject than this. Our health is got to be number one.
Right.
And also, if you were touched, moved, and inspired by anything that you heard or experienced here today, especially with these people sharing, then go to our website at newhealthconversation.tv and interact with us there, comment, ask us questions. And if you have more questions that you need answers for, details, just give us a call at 303-416-4706, and a nutritional coach will answer your questions. And other than that, I just love you, Peter.
Thanks.
I do
It's
too,
like
actually.
it's like you have this opportunity, I think, right now that really you can change the world. And for me, you are the antidote to what we've been subjecting ourselves to for the last several decades.
Yes.
And that's how I want to close the show, really, from my heart.
And
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I want to encourage people to call us. We'll give them free advice, whatever. So can you just repeat the number one more time? I don't know what the number is.
303-416-4706. We got to close out the show. It's the end of the Conscious Hour.
Thank
you.
Was killing myself with the food I eat, toxic to my health, till I got the news. There's another path that I could